All right. So, this is my GoPro view of the 2022 Fandango mountain bike race 60 plus and 50 plus Clydesdale also, but I was in the 60 plus group, so this is the story of that one, and here we go. So it's a pretty lively group. Everyone is, pretty relaxed as, they're all lined up. There are a few people that really weren't in the correct category or at least lined up properly. So to get to the front, the people that were a little bit too eager, um, there had to be some adjustments made there. But people are moving up, and soon it will be my turn to be on the line. I've raced this course before a couple of times. Last year was the unfortunate accident where I had some gentleman, and I use that term loosely, run into me from behind and hit me so hard that it tacoed my rear wheel. And he didn't offer to pay for it. He just said, "Oh, sorry, dude." Like, it was almost like he was on drugs or something. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he was like high, because as hard as he hit me from the rear on the backside of the course, where there's basically an open field right before the parking lot, he could have easily passed. I don't know what was up with that, but that was disappointing because I would have gotten my participation prize since there were only two of us in the race and 60 plus, and maybe even better than that because I was leading at the time. Anyway, I digress. Moving right along. Let's see. Let's move this ahead a little bit to get to the start. And here we go. So I'm on the line now. I'm certain the gentleman is reading off some stuff. I've got a decent position. I believe there are four of us in the 60 plus group, and we're about to get started. And we are off. So this video, I didn't add any telemetry, anything as far as speed or power or anything. I thought I would just keep it clean, but here we go. So I'm feeling actually really tired. My legs were like screaming, like they didn't even want to do this weekend. But I need to start getting into the race, my race form, and to get some practice so that I'm not like super nervous. And since this wasn't a big time event, eh, I would go and spend the money. Kind of a long drive down there, but well, if you want to go mountain bike racing, that's what it's about. Kind of unfortunate in the 60 plus group, East Cat 2, or whatever. It's not that big of a field, but racing 50 plus, these guys are just like fast. But I digress. I'm feeling pretty good. So I think the gentleman who's right in front of me in the green is actually the guy who won the 60 plus in my group. So at least I was like holding my own with him this part of the lap. I'm flowing pretty well. I'm riding the Cannondale. It's doing pretty well. I'm trying not to blow up too early, and I know there's going to be some bottlenecks up here, so I keep my distance so I can flow the lines as best I can. Maybe I'm back a little bit too far, but I haven't done this course in a while, at least in this direction. It was last year where I did it almost a lap before I got tacoed, so I was taking a little bit of time to refamiliarize with the course, and I knew that there's going to be some tight stuff here. It's flowing pretty well. I'm enjoying the course. At this point, everyone has anxious nerves, and they're going probably over their FTP. I know I am at this point, but I don't want the guys from behind me to pass, and I want to try to keep my good position. Because of the way the single track is in here, if you get bottlenecked behind people like on the climb, where you get caught, if there's faster people in front of you, they just walk away, and it's just unfortunate. So here I'm losing a little bit of ground, not certain why I was doing that. But the bike was shifting well. I suspected I was overexerting myself, and that was an issue. Oh, and then we see the guys, the leaders, going the other direction already. They are beginning to check out. These 50 plus guys, they are fast. So unlike some of my recent videos, I'm using the GoPro. It's a Hero 5. The stabilization isn't nearly as good as the Insta360, but it's got better battery life. So I figured I would pick that. And I could put it on the handlebars, and I didn't want to have something on my head kind of bopping around. It's amazing how something that's even a couple, maybe 200 grams, 150 grams, when it's on the end of a lever on top of your helmet, you notice it when you hit bumps and things. But this is a nice flowy course. Now, the only drawback is with those 650B wheels. They don't flow quite as well, but that's okay. And I guess the other issue with the bike was the night before, I noticed I almost had no rear brakes, so I changed the brakes, but the rear wheel was dragging just a little bit. And if I had to guess, maybe 5 watts worth, but still, that's a lot. And I thought about racing the enduro bike, but it's 5 pounds heavier, so I chose that, well, maybe those brakes will loosen up and I'll be okay on this one. Looks like I'm still in contention here and actually feeling pretty good. This was a pretty tight little corner here, little switchback that doesn't look that steep and technical, but it was quite challenging. And I'm really glad that I hung back from these guys because I needed the room to try to pick some lines here. Still in contention, and at this point, I'm probably, actually, I recall starting to settle into a rhythm that I know I could handle. This was a fun little section, these little rocks, chance to like stretch a little bit, push, see what the other competition has. La di da di da. Things are okay here, and I'm still in contact with people, which is good. Not too terribly far behind, so it's like I am indeed sort of in the mix. I think if I improve my cornering and bike handling a little bit, actually a lot, I could not bleed off those watts back into the brakes and save myself a lot of energy just trying to catch back up. But it is what it is. And now the climbing in earnest is starting to begin. I can see the gentleman in front. Um, he's he's pushing well, but it looks like I'm making ground on him as he probably blew up a little bit. Or maybe he was just settling in. This was a nice little section. This little technical tricky spot here doesn't look that tricky on the video, but if you hit those lines wrong, you could be in trouble. So here we go. So at this point, I think that was the guy who was in first. I think I'm actually leading at this point. It's kind of unfortunate that, and maybe I'll suggest it to one of these guys, that the next time they line us all together, at least the Clydesdales or the 60 plus, if people could raise their hands and say, hey, who's in the 60 plus group? And then I would have some clue as to who I was competing against. Because at this point right now, I'm just chasing ghosts. And if I had known that that was the guy who was in first place that I just passed, I would have settled in a little bit. So it looks like one of the guys from the earlier classes. Nice that he moved out of the way. Looks like I'm standing up here, putting on a lot of power, getting some ground here. Climbing, climbing, climbing. There's only about 500 feet of climbing per lap, and it's not super technical. But this year I've gained like 11 pounds, and I can feel it. I'm not the sprightly gentleman that I was in um, the form I had last year. Good race course, nice areas to pass, and at least I made that pass on the gentleman behind me stick, and it looks like we're starting to pull in some other people. Yeah, this course was set up fairly nicely in that there wasn't a huge bottleneck early on, and with these open sections here, it's reasonable to pass or reasonable to move over and let people pass. It's a beautiful day, blue skies. You can't really see it, but there's a little bit of wind. Not feeling it now, but when you get out of the exposure on the other side, woo-wee, that wind picked up and it had a big effect on the event. Ramming and a thumping through the trees. And by this point, the ground's starting to flatten out a little bit, letting the bike run. Trying to make certain that those that I passed don't get any ideas that I'm weakening yet. Yeah, it's really hard to see that these are little grades in these switchbacks, but there's switchbacks like all the way up the 500 feet of climbing, and you can see your competition, and it looks like they might be really close to you, but in fact, they could be like two switchbacks away, but at least you can see them. And if you can see them, you can chase them and have some idea that either they're checked out or you have a chance of catching them because they are weakening. So I'm pretty happy with my performance so far. My legs weren't feeling great at the time, and I'm really hoping that they would begin to come good. I can speak now that compared to the shape that I think I've got at least a week later, I was in horrible shape and I felt like awful. If I would just had a little bit of the form that I had a week and a half or a week later, I would have been really happy on the start line. But it always takes a race or two, I mean, real race effort to shake out the legs and the lungs. Fun little section into the trees. Nice to see the spectators. And there's some pretty cool switchbacks up here that if you're not expecting them, you can't really see the steepness here of what we're actually about to encounter. But you gotta throw a couple extra 100 watts up these little things just to keep the pace and not fall over. I do like racing in the trees. It reminds me of the East Coast racing back in Pennsylvania, New Jersey that I grew up racing in. And sometimes in some of the technical stuff, I don't like the trees because there's a high penalty for failure. They're a little close together, and if you were to wipe out, hitting a tree is bad. I mean, it really hurts. So that's probably some of the reason why I'm not pushing it as much as I could be some of the time. Just because that there is well, penalties. Climbing, 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 climbing. Yeah, I think I may have to go and invest in a Hero 5. So here's a gentleman who passes me. I let him by. He's going pretty good, and I'm kind of sort of holding his pace, but I think he's got some of his buddies behind me. And at some point, I'm gonna go and try to let them by, and catastrophe strikes. And I'm down like on the ground, and I'm like, what is going on? So I pick the bike up, and I've got chain suck. And as you can see, there goes the gentleman who eventually wins 60 plus, who was pretty close to me. There goes some other guys who passed me. I'm like, crap. And the chain suck was like awful. And I'm not counting the seconds here, but like during the race, it just seemed like it took me forever to get this thing going again. I had to calm down, take a deep breath, um, get that chain unstuck. Oh, yep. And so there goes like the guy who got Bill, I think that was his name, third place in 60 plus. So basically, after all this, I am in like last place, and this is just horrible. Just watching the time just go away as I'm trying to get this chain suck fixed. I'm like, oh, okay, finally. And I don't know how long that was, maybe 30 seconds, 40 seconds, a minute, but that's a lot of chasing. And then I'm going to have to catch and pass guys that I passed before, and of course they're going to hold me up slightly because I could be going a lot faster. Another one of these tight switchbacks, and I am on the hunt to regain my position. At least I got a little bit of a break, but yeah, yeah, not good. So I begin to reel in some of these people. They may have started in the class behind me or whatever. I don't think I gained that much on them, but it's clear that I'm easily matching their pace. This is near the top of the climb, and it's starting to stretch out a little bit. Still below tree line here, not like some of the races in Breck or wherever, where it's, ooh yeah, we're up there. Fun times. There's some of the switchbacks. You can see some of the competition going the other way. Looks like they're close to you, but they're not really that close. So even at this speed, 40 seconds, that's probably, I don't know how much time, but never give up. And since there are 3 laps to this race, I knew there was time to make up ground, so I wasn't going to panic. Yeah, but I was definitely like in chase mode. Definitely one of these things where, and I'll say it again, not knowing who you're racing against just changes all the tactics. In fact, there's almost no tactics. It's just go hard. Whereas if I had caught the guy who was in first, I would have just sat on him, held a good pace, saw where he was strong, saw where he was weak, especially with 3 laps to go, and then maybe test him on some of the sections to see where his weaknesses were, instead of just trying to go hard, chase and drop, chase and drop. I mean, that is a tactic, and you see that in some of the Women's World Cup now, where Lawana Lecomte or Rebecca McConnell, they just check out early on and let everybody else chase. And that's a valid tactic, but at least they know who they're racing against. Here, I'm coming up into some of the traffic, some of the people that either in the class below me or they are in my class and I was ahead of them. But I think these were like some young kids. And so I make the pass here on one of them. Life is good. I know I'm being held up here slightly. And so those 40 seconds that I lost, it's like not only did I lose that, but I have to like sit behind these guys and just do their weak pace. And they're racing hard or whatever, and it's my fault for crashing. Or just being kind and trying to let somebody come by, because I don't know if I said it before, but the trail was so loose I didn't realize it, and when I went to move over it was like being on marbles, and that front wheel just washed. Mental note, don't do that again. Climbing, 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 still getting towards the top of the climb. But the way these switchbacks are, you get some respite, when you're traversing across the fall line before the actual descending begins. So following these guys, I was thinking to myself, I could be going faster here, but I'm just stuck because I'm behind these guys. And it's like more like time that's just being lost. Looks like they're gaining on some people, and then this gentleman makes the pass. Maybe I should have been closer to try to make the pass a little earlier here. At some point, I know I will get around this gentleman. Yeah, I think maybe a little bit too polite from the old days of Norbo when they said just someone says track or whatever, you just like yield. Uh, just move over because having somebody breathing down your neck is just like uncomfortable. Plus, if they're just a little bit faster, you can follow their lines and maybe learn a little something. Even if they do walk away from you, you have a chance to learn something for the few minutes that you are behind them. A little bit of descent here along the traverse, following this gentleman. But I must say, I do like the mountain bike racing. It's it's fun. Almost to the top here. A little bit of chunk. The 650B wheels were doing what they needed to. When after watching some of the pro riders, or at least Cat 1s flying down some of this, I realized how much faster I could be going. But that's all with confidence and probably practice. I guess if I was serious, I'd come down like to this course once, or twice a year just to practice it. And if they have the state championships here again, yeah, it might be worth an early trip down just to go through and like, scope the course out again. Yeah, but I probably won't because I don't care about it that much. But it is a fun course to ride. I would definitely ride this if it was much closer to home, just for fun and variety. And you can see here like all those people that passed me, I really haven't caught them. So you can see how far behind I really am just for that 40 seconds. So get behind this another guy, make the pass here, and life is good. Almost to the top before the descent, and then I'll end up. I think I was shadowing these three gentlemen up here before I get a chance to pass them. I think one of them was like Bill, um, gentleman from who lives in Taiwan most of the time. I think someplace overseas. Trying to remember. He races a lot. Strong guy, really nice. Yep, flowing the descent. And I know I'm making ground up on these guys, and at this point I'm thinking, oh, I could be going faster. Super nice that that guy pulled over and let us through. And now we're starting to let the bike run. And I do recall that I could be letting the bike run faster through here, but I want to give these guys a little bit of room, thinking that, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to pass in these sections, thinking that I'd have to wait till the open field at the bottom of this to be able to really pass. But it is kind of cool following people. You feel like you're really racing. Some of these like long endurance races or whatever, you get out on the single track, like Laramie Enduro or some of the early ones, you're like, I don't see anybody for a while, depending on how fast you are. So here we go. So yeah, here's definitely where I lost a lot of time, like with these guys taking their time over some of this stuff. Good to know that at least I am faster than some people like descending, but I've got work to do. At least to the point where I feel like I'm not taking risks like some people. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to invest in one of these Hero 10s or something. Yeah, the stabilization here is pretty much non-existent. That being said, you do kind of get the feeling of what the terrain is like. Sometimes if it's too smooth, um, you lose a little something there. But too much of this is not all that watchable. 5, 10 years ago it was watchable. It's like, wow, this is really great. And now it's the bar has been risen. He has risen. It has risen. And so, yeah. If anybody watches one of my short track videos, they'll see what I'm talking about. Where it's shot with the Insta 360. Yep, still being held up through here. Still being held. Time just bleeding away. And I wouldn't have gained that much time, maybe another 10, 15 seconds, but um, it is racing. Heading up to the parking lot, and here we go. As you can see, I've got plenty to go around these guys. Yep, I think that was the third place guy, Bill 60 plus, that was leading that pack. I think he cheered me on there. That was kind of cool. And away we go. Almost one complete lap. You see some of the leaders that made this little hairpin loop. And here we go. So I'm really glad that I passed those guys before I got to this section. I'm not the fastest guy through here, but I can definitely let the bike run a little bit. Lickety split, lickety split. Okay, we should count and see how far I can actually go in 40 seconds. You know, if I start like right here and look at my watch or some such. There's like 2 or 3 seconds right there. See if I can see the people I'm chasing. Yeah, and this section's really fast. I enjoyed this one. So we're heading to the parking lot. This is right about where last year, I think right here is where that gentleman tackled my rear wheel in this part of the course. And as you can see, like, what the heck? There's no reason that anybody should have run into anybody at this portion and then like not offer any kind of restitution. I mean, I could afford the rear wheel and everything, but it was like the principle of it. And I did end up buying a rim and just rebuilding the wheel myself. But it was still with all the parts, spokes, and all that. It was over $300, and that's just for me to do the labor. So it looks like there's some strong men from the class behind me. I'm kind of wondering why they started guys that are faster behind. Not so certain about what that was about. But hey, maybe they're sandbaggers. I don't know. You know, first time guys don't know where they are. And here we go, heading towards the parking lot. Lap one, 7/8 completed. But it was a beautiful day, and this is where there was like a big headwind, at least in the later laps. I don't know if the camera shows it here. And I don't think it was that bad this lap, but in the subsequent laps, oh, in this open field, a strong headwind, it's brutal. Just brutal. Yeah, I was wishing I had my power meter on this bike at the time. It wasn't working, and so I had no idea what kind of power I was putting out here. I'd have been happy if I was putting out good power, you know, knowing that there's a wind. But when you're going slow and you don't know what you're putting out, whether you're tired or not, it's like, ugh. Coming up to start finish, and there's my yellow Xterra. I parked next to the course purposely this time, just in case there was going to be an issue. Figure I could like swap parts or swap bikes. Although I guess with this being a UCI race, there's limited stuff that you can do. As far as if there's a mechanical, you can't actually switch bikes, or you may not switch bikes. And I think this somebody just passed me. I don't know. Maybe he's recovering or whatever. But I was definitely looking to get around him because it definitely slowed me up a little bit. This is like good momentum, and I need everything I can get at this point. Maybe it's the end of his lap or something. Yeah, I wonder if there is a category that's behind that only does like one lap. I'll have to look at some point. But he was pretty strong when he passed me. Maybe his descending skills were that much better. But I'm like, dude, like I got time to go. Let's go. Go time. Back into the trees and everything. It's almost exactly a 5 mile lap, which is cool because that way you can make a 15-mile race, a 20-mile race, depending. This particular event's 3 laps. State championships is 4 laps, same course. And I was pretty spent by the time I got done with the third lap, so I got a little bit of training to do. Coming down to the parking lot where you can see the start finish line, it's like, oh yeah, but you have to go all this wiggy wiggy stuff before you even get to that place to see that. Yep, still trying to hunt down the guys that passed me. Um, and as you can see here, I can see hide nor hair of anybody. At least the bike's working well this year. State championships last year had all those shifting problems. There's a video on that. You can check it out with me whining about that. So I spent some time trying to get the bike straight before this one, and I was pretty happy with it. Yeah, the Cannondale's pretty finicky. You got to get the shifters dialed in, otherwise, there's issues. Got the chain alignment tool out or derailleur hanger alignment tool, got all that done, and it's much better. Lap one almost done. There's the start finish line down there. This is like 32 minutes or so, 31 minutes a lap. So it'll be like another hour out here. Some of the spectators. At least it's not a super crowded course. Yep, and there we go. See the start finish line over there? We'll make the little U-E down here pretty much. Loop you through the trees, and then come back, and it will be lap one. And here we go. Lap one. And it's rinse, lather, and repeat.